In recent days, there's been good news in the semiconductor industry. According to a news report by China Central Television, on October 9, the South Korean Presidential Office announced that the US had agreed to allow Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix to provide equipment to their factories in China without requiring additional permits. Is this a gradual easing of sanctions in the semiconductor sector aimed at companies like Huawei and Yangtze Memory that the US can't contain? It's important to note that over the past few years, the US has been aggressively suppressing China, listing over 600 Chinese companies in their control list. This includes imposing tariffs, cutting off supplies, and restricting imports. Most of the US sanctions have been concentrated in the chip sector, where the US has a significant advantage due to its early industrialization and technological advancement. However, China's rapid development has made the US worried and anxious, prompting unprecedented attacks on China. Under this severe repression, China has been forced to make many changes. Initially, it responded with equivalent countermeasures against the US, followed by industrial transformation and technological upgrades, leveraging its industrial advantages to achieve self-sufficiency. In fact, this trade and tech war isn't just between China and the US. All countries around the world are building their own defenses. On one hand, no one wants their interests infringed upon by the US, and on the other hand, having absolute technological superiority allows one to have more say in international trade. Some may wonder, has the US finally capitulated in this game? I don't think so. This is completely out of character for the US. They initiated this tech war and it's unlikely they would halfway surrender or give up. This is about the face of American politicians. Moreover, given the current state of the tech war, this isn't the outcome the US desires. They haven't gained any advantage yet. Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, two South Korean companies, are the world's largest and second largest memory chip manufacturers, controlling nearly 70% of the global dynamic random access memory (DRAM) market and 50% of the NAND flash memory market. Additionally, both have invested billions of dollars to establish manufacturing plants in China. Samsung Electronics produces flash memory chips in Lebanon, while SK Hynix manufactures flash memory chips in Dalian and produces DRAM chips in Wuxi. Business was going well until October of last year when the Biden administration imposed comprehensive export control measures, prohibiting US companies from exporting the equipment needed to produce chips to Chinese chip manufacturers. Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix were required to obtain licenses to bring US chip manufacturing equipment into China. Without advanced equipment support from the United States, the operations of Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix factories in China would be significantly impacted, possibly leading to shutdowns. The investments of several $billion might be at risk. Strongly opposed by the South Korean side, the US granted a one-year waiver to the two South Korean companies, and the export control measures will take effect on October 11 this year. In December of last year, the United States added China's Yangtze Memory, a manufacturer of NAND flash memory, to the entity list. Only with a special license from the US government could they purchase technology from US suppliers. Now, with Yangtze Memory producing flash memory chips under these restrictions, and companies like Changshin Memory producing DRAM chips, these chips are still flooding the market, putting pressure on the prices of established brands. As a result, Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix have had a difficult year, with declining revenue and plummeting net profits. Samsung Electronics Q1 2023 financial report shows an operating profit of 6.402 trillion Korean won, approximately 3.3 billion yuan, a 95% year-on-year decrease, marking the lowest record in 14 years. The semiconductor division reported a loss of 4.58 trillion Korean won, approximately 23.6 billion yuan, dragging down the entire company. The situation in the second and third quarters is not much better. If it's merely sacrificing others' interests, the United States might not care. However, the issue is that 55% of Samsung Electronics common stocks are held by foreign investors, and 89% of the preferred stocks that control profit distribution are held by foreign investors, with a significant portion coming from Wall Street. Even before the sanctions take effect, these companies have already been hit hard. If the sanctions are maintained, the situation is likely to worsen. What's more, the US strategy has always been to lock down high-end technologies and dump mid- and low-end ones. When China achieves a breakthrough in mature process chips, sanctions in related areas will be lifted, and dumping will take place, such as TSMC's 28nm wafer factory in Nanjing. With Yangtze Memory finding a way to address production capacity issues, continuing to restrict Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix in China has little meaning. This could be just the beginning, and as Huawei quietly uses the 7nm process to produce the Kirin 9000 supporting 5G, we may see more and more sanctions being voluntarily lifted by the US. Many netizens even boldly speculate that in the future, Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix may have corresponding strategies for investment expansion, upgrades, or any form of sale in their semiconductor fabs in China. For instance, requiring the use of Chinese domestic equipment, disclosing and surrendering technology processes, and even handing over data, similar to the demands for TSMC's expansion of the 28nm wafer factory in Nanjing, and any unreasonable demands should be refused. These are potential countermeasures that China could take. Amid widespread applause, People's Daily, the most authoritative media in China, suddenly published a commentary regarding this event, stating that we should abandon all illusions. This surprised many. Could the US be harboring some hidden agenda? Let's explore together what the purpose of the US loosening its export restrictions could be. First, to nurture its own chip industry, it's important to note that the US didn't exempt all export companies. They selected profitable enterprises to loosen restrictions. For critical technologies and components, the US still tightly controls the throat of various countries. During the period of US export restrictions, many US companies lost the Chinese market, including Intel, Nvidia, and others. Not only did their revenues plummet, but their stock prices were also halved. These chip giants had appealed to the White House long before, requesting the lifting of restrictions. Otherwise, not only would the production capacity and scale of the US chip industry be affected, but there would also be no motivation for updates and upgrades. Therefore, the US waiver this time is entirely to protect its own chip industry. The starting point is fundamentally not to strengthen technological cooperation. Secondly, to avoid strong international public criticism. In the current state of a divided and isolated global economy, countries are facing severe challenges. The US loosening its grip is also to avoid facing more public criticism, to position itself on the moral high ground, and to gain understanding and support from other countries. The US primarily exempted companies from South Korea and Taiwan this time. On one hand, this allows the US to obtain more desired resources from these regions, and on the other hand, it prevents mainland China from gaining more benefits. From this perspective, the fundamental attitude of the US towards China has hardly changed. The strong targeting of these exemptions is evident to anyone, showing that the US does not intend to ease its stance. This move by the US once again almost led many Chinese people to mistakenly believe that the US was going to ease its stance and opportunities for external development would arise. In reality, this is not the case. People's Daily's assessment of this matter is incisive. China must always maintain a clear mind. Regardless of the intentions of the United States, it's crucial to be self-reliant. China needs to continuously increase research and development investments, strive for independent innovation, and reduce dependence on other markets like the US, Japan, and South Korea. This is the fundamental path for China's survival and development. The US's export exemptions are merely a strategic adjustment in response to China's suppression, and its core intention and purpose have not changed. Therefore, Chinese companies need to abandon all illusions and always maintain a clear and rational mindset to build strong industrial barriers, enabling them to stand invincible. Regarding the sudden announcement of export exemptions by the US and People's Daily's call for the Chinese people to abandon all illusions, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section.